Today, we've got something colossal to unpack. A moment so shocking, so unexpected, it has the entire WWE Universe buzzing. Here's your hook: Roman Reigns is back, and he's bringing Hikuleo into the Bloodline. That's right. The tribal chief has returned after his crushing WrestleMania 41 defeat, and he's not coming alone. Standing by his side is Hikuleo, a towering new force from the legendary Anoa'i family, who made his jaw-dropping WWE debut on SmackDown, then doubled down with a surprise appearance on Raw. But the real stunner? A private, off-air moment backstage, Roman Reigns officially welcoming Hikuleo into the Bloodline. What does this mean for the future of WWE? What role will this new alliance play in the shifting power structure? And what exactly went down in that quiet, fateful encounter? Today, we're breaking it all down, every twist, every implication, every last detail. So grab a drink, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, smash that bell, and get ready, because Wrestling Juice is taking you deep inside WWE's next seismic shift. Picture this: the lights drop. The crowd roars. Two massive figures stand face to face, poised to reshape an empire. This isn't just a comeback or a debut. It's the beginning of a new chapter in the Bloodline saga. And we're peeling back every layer. Let's talk about the man of the hour, Hikuleo. Before we dive into the fireworks of his debut, you need to understand who this man is, and why his arrival has WWE on edge. Hikuleo is no random powerhouse. He's wrestling royalty, born into the prestigious Anoa'i lineage. If you know WWE, you know that name: The Rock, The Usos, Solo Sikoa, Yokozuna, Roman Reigns. The Bloodline is more than a faction. It's a dynasty. And Hikuleo is the next chapter. He's the younger brother of Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa, both veterans of NJPW and known associates of the Bloodline. This family tree runs deep, and Hikuleo's arrival is no accident. Let's talk size. The man is a monster. At 6'8" and over 300 pounds, he's built like a tank, but don't let the size fool you. He moves with a rare blend of power and agility. This isn't a slow-motion giant. This is a fast, brutal wrecking machine. Hikuleo began his journey in New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2016, training under the Bullet Club banner. He started as a tag specialist, capturing IWGP Tag Team Gold with Tama Tonga. But he evolved fast, breaking out as a singles threat. His signature win? The Strong Openweight Championship, proof he can hang with the best on his own terms. His finisher, the Tongan Twist, is a devastating chokeslam that flattens opponents. He's also got a killer superkick and a running lariat that could flip a truck. This man doesn't wrestle. He crushes. When WWE signed him in July 2024, speculation ran wild. Would he start in NXT? Join his brothers in a new faction? No. WWE had bigger plans. They threw him straight onto the main roster. No build-up. No slow burn. Just impact. Why now? Why Hikuleo? It's about timing. It's about legacy. And it's about Roman Reigns. The Bloodline has defined WWE for years, built on family, loyalty, and dominance. But after WrestleMania 41, that foundation cracked. Solo Sikoa went rogue. The Usos splintered. Heyman jumped ship. Roman was left exposed. He needed a new ally. Not just muscle. Someone he could trust. Enter Hikuleo. He's not just a physical enforcer. He's a message. A new chapter. A warning. His presence next to Reigns is no accident. It's power. It's intimidation. It's legacy in motion. And when the two of them walked side by side, the entire WWE locker room took notice. Now let's rewind to the night it all started. Friday Night SmackDown, June 13, 2025. Live from the Kia Forum in Los Angeles. A sold-out crowd, riding the high of a stacked show. Seth Rollins is in the ring, running his mouth with the undisputed WWE Universal title slung over his shoulder. At his side? The New Authority, Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. Reigns is gone. Rollins declares the Bloodline finished. Then, the lights go out. A low, rumbling bass hits. Static floods the Titantron. The crowd explodes. Something's coming. A silhouette emerges. Then the music kicks, tribal drums layered with heavy guitar. Hikuleo walks out. Black gear. Hood low. Moving slow, deliberate. At 6'8", he dwarfs the ramp. The crowd chants, "Who's that?" They don't know his name yet, but they know what he is. Rollins freezes. Heyman's face drops. Breaker charges. Mistake. Boom. Big boot. Breaker's down. Reed follows. Tongan twist. He's out cold. Rollins bails, stunned. Who the hell is this guy? The arena's on fire. Hikuleo raises his fist, the Bloodline salute. Commentary goes wild. "That's an Anoa'i," shouts Graves. "That's family." Cole leans in, "Could this be Roman's doing?" But the story doesn't end there. 2 nights later, Raw goes off the air, and WWE cameras catch something unexpected. Backstage, Reigns is pacing. Alone. Wounded, but not broken. Hikuleo walks in. Towering. Silent. Reigns stops. Looks him in the eye. "Your family," he says. "You know what this means?" "I know the code," Hikuleo replies. Loyalty. Dominance. Blood. Reigns smirks. Extends a fist. Hikuleo bumps it. It's official. Hikuleo is Bloodline. No pyro. No hype package. Just words, weight, and a quiet pact. "They took everything from me," Reigns says. WrestleMania. Heyman. The title. "We're taking it all back." Hikuleo cracks his knuckles. "Anyone in our way, I'll break them." And just like that, the Bloodline is reborn. But this isn't a reset. It's a reboot. A smarter, darker, more dangerous version. This moment means everything. First, Reigns is vulnerable, acknowledging he can't do it alone. Second, Hikuleo's not just a soldier, he's the next pillar. Maybe even the heir. Third, Rollins, Heyman, and the New Authority now have a serious problem. WWE fans felt it. That moment trended instantly. Roman and Hikuleo backstage was everywhere. Because this isn't just a faction. It's a family reunion, with a mission. And WWE is on notice. So where do we go from here? Let's talk predictions. A 6-man tag at SummerSlam 2025? Reigns, Hikuleo, and maybe Jey Uso vs Rollins, Breaker, and Reed? That's a main event waiting to happen. Hikuleo vs Gunther for the Intercontinental title? Reigns going after Rollins for the top prize? Possible. A family civil war, Reigns and Hikuleo vs Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga? That's fireworks. Long term, this is about legacy. Roman's not just staying relevant, he's building something bigger. Hikuleo is the cornerstone. Will the Usos come back? Will more Anoa'i family members join the cause? And what about Heyman? Will he try to slither his way back in? Anything can happen, and we'll be right here for all of it. This is Wrestling Juice. Hit like. Subscribe. Drop your predictions in the comments. The Bloodline saga just got bloodier. The lights dropped. The crowd held its breath. The pulse of tribal drums rumbled across the arena. And then, he stepped out. Roman Reigns. The man who once ruled WWE with the cold certainty of a warlord had returned, not broken, not humbled, but rebuilt. hardened, dangerous. And standing beside him, a towering shadow of raw power and silent fury, Hikuleo. No pyro. No promos. Just presence. And just like that, the story of the Bloodline wasn't over. It had only shifted form into something meaner, darker, and more unpredictable than ever. This wasn't just a comeback. This was a warning. Wrestling fans know that moments like this are rare. You don't get many shots in WWE history where a new face and a familiar one collide in a moment so electric that the entire landscape tilts. Roman Reigns coming back after the most catastrophic defeat of his career would have been big news on its own. But pairing that with the jaw-dropping debut of Hikuleo, a 6'8" behemoth from the Anoa'i dynasty, wasn't just storytelling. It was strategy. It was blood making a statement. Let's rewind. WrestleMania 41 had left Roman stripped bare. Solo Sikoa betrayed him. Paul Heyman slithered off into the arms of the new authority. The Usos vanished, fractured. Seth Rollins stood tall over Reigns with the undisputed title. And for the first time in years, the tribal chief looked human. Mortal. Then came the silence. Weeks passed. Rumors spread. Was he injured? Retired? Was the Bloodline finished? The WWE Universe moved on. Or so they thought. Then came June 13, 2025. A date that fans will remember for years to come. Friday Night SmackDown. Los Angeles. The Kia Forum. Sold out. On a night already stacked with title defenses and storyline blow-ups, nobody expected it. Nobody was prepared. When the lights died and the screen went black, everyone thought it was another Rollins stunt. Another authority gimmick. But then, tribal drums. Guitar. Static. And that slow, deliberate silhouette walking through the fog. The crowd didn't recognize the figure at first. He was too tall to be Roman. Too silent to be a returning Uso. But as he stepped into the light, black gear, hood down, eyes cold, they knew. This wasn't some random NXT call-up. This wasn't filler. This was an enforcer. And then, chaos. Braun Breaker charged and got a boot to the face that folded him like paper. Bronson Reed tried to double up, he ate a Tongan twist that rattled the mat. Seth Rollins backed away like he'd seen a ghost. And the crowd exploded. He's an Anoa'i. Corey Graves shouted. A monster from the Bloodline, Michael Cole said, his voice cracking. But who is he? Before the questions could take hold, Hikuleo raised his fist, the Bloodline salute. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a fluke. This was family business. And just when things couldn't get any heavier, WWE cameras caught what might become the most replayed off-air moment in recent history. 2 nights later, backstage at Raw, Roman Reigns was waiting. No spotlight. No entrance music. Just him, pacing like a lion in a cage. And then Hikuleo walked in. Silent. Towering. Unflinching. Your family, Reigns said. I know the code, Hikuleo replied. A fist bump. A nod. No words after that. None needed. The deal was made. The Bloodline, reborn. Not as the same force it was. Not as the loud, multi-member juggernaut from 2022. This was different. Smaller. Sharper. Built on silence, dominance, and precision. And here's what makes this moment seismic, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't overbooked. It was calculated. Cold. Efficient. This wasn't Reigns reclaiming his crown. This was Reigns picking up a weapon and preparing for war. Let's be real. WWE has had its share of shocking debuts, twist turns, and betrayals. We've seen John Cena's returns. We've witnessed Triple H reform factions. We've watched legends come back from retirement. But this? this felt different. Because this isn't about nostalgia. This isn't about ratings. This is about legacy. Roman Reigns doesn't just want his title back. He wants to rewrite the family legacy that cracked beneath him. And Hikuleo isn't just here to fill the muscle void. He's the statement piece in that legacy. The new flag. The new executioner. He's here to send a message: the bloodline never dies. It evolves. And if you think this is just a new tag team, you're not paying attention. This is bigger than belts. This is chess. Seth Rollins thinks he runs WWE now. Paul Heyman thinks he's outplayed the dynasty. Solo Sikoa thinks he's the new alpha. But Roman Reigns is no longer in the mood to lead an empire. He's in the mood to build a kingdom of reckoning. The question is, who joins next? Will the Usos be pulled back into the fold? Will Solo come back with his own army, Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu? Will Paul Heyman double-cross Rollins and beg his way back into Reigns' circle? No one knows. But here's what we do know: WWE just shifted. You felt it. The crowd felt it. The industry felt it. The chessboard got knocked off the table, and now the pieces are being rearranged with Roman's fingerprints on every square. And standing guard over that board? Hikuleo. This is wrestling juice, and today, we're going deeper than ever. This isn't just a return. It's a resurrection. A reckoning. A reminder that no matter how many times you think the bloodline is finished, it finds a way to survive. Hit that subscribe button. Smash the bell icon. Drop your wildest predictions in the comments. Because what we're about to break down isn't just a storyline. It's WWE history in motion. And the Empire just found its executioner. Wrestling fans have short memories, not by choice but by design. In an industry driven by constant motion, the next shock, the next betrayal, the next surprise return always seems just around the corner. But every so often, something happens that cuts through the noise. Something that doesn't just change a match card, but reframes an entire era. Roman Reigns returning to WWE with Hikuleo at his side is one of those moments. This isn't a footnote in WWE history. This is a pivot point. The reason it matters so much is simple: the entire foundation of power within WWE has shifted. The Bloodline, once thought dead, was the most dominant faction in modern wrestling. For over 3 years, it ruled with a blend of psychological warfare, family loyalty, and relentless in-ring control. Roman Reigns stood at the head of the table, untouchable. Paul Heyman was the mind. The Usos were the heart. Solo Sikoa was the blade. Then WrestleMania 41 happened. In one night, that dynasty was fractured. Roman Reigns walked in a god and left stripped of everything that made him invincible. Seth Rollins walked away as undisputed champion. Paul Heyman aligned with the new authority, abandoning the very empire he helped build. Solo Sikoa turned his back, blindsiding Roman in a moment that felt like Caesar being stabbed by Brutus. The Usos, lost in their own civil war, vanished from the battlefield. And for the first time in years, Reigns was alone. Alone doesn't mean weak. It means calculating. Quiet. Deadly. The weeks after WrestleMania were filled with silence, and that silence was deafening. Roman disappeared from television. WWE moved on. Seth Rollins and the new authority stepped in. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed became the new enforcers. New factions rose. Old ones fell. Rumors swirled. Fans speculated. Pundits declared the Bloodline storyline officially over. But Roman wasn't done. He was regrouping. In an industry addicted to noise, silence becomes strategy. Every day he stayed gone, people stopped talking about him. And that's exactly how he wanted it. Because when he returned, it wouldn't just be to demand his throne back. It would be to build something bigger than before. Something meaner. Something leaner. And now, we see the execution of that plan in real time. This return matters because it marks a turning point not just in a character arc, but in WWE's power structure. Reigns didn't just bring back an old ally. He didn't reform the original Bloodline. He introduced a completely new piece to the puzzle, Hikuleo. That alone should terrify everyone in WWE. Hikuleo isn't a nostalgia pop. He isn't an overhyped NXT call-up. He's the first piece of what could become the next evolution of the Bloodline, a darker, stripped-down faction built less on tribal loyalty and more on calculated brutality. Hikuleo is from the same Anoa'i family lineage, yes. But he brings something Roman hasn't had in a long time, a blank slate with no history of betrayal, no locker room baggage, no past alliances to unlearn. This is important. Reigns isn't just recruiting family. He's recruiting precision. Hikuleo hasn't been tainted by WWE politics. He hasn't picked sides in old wars. He's a soldier with clean hands, and he's dangerous because of it. This moment matters because it comes when WWE's hierarchy is more fragile than ever. Seth Rollins may be the champion, but he's surrounded by opportunists. The new authority is built on shaky ground. Paul Heyman's loyalty is transactional. Braun Breaker is powerful but impulsive. Bronson Reed is brute strength with no vision. And deep down, everyone knows it's only a matter of time before that alliance implodes under the weight of its own ambition. That time just got shorter. Reigns sees the cracks. And now, with Hikuleo at his side, he's moving in for the kill. This isn't just about reclaiming gold. It's about reclaiming identity. Roman doesn't need a title to be the face of WWE. He needs power, influence, fear. And those are things you earn not with belts, but with presence. The kind of presence Hikuleo brings when he walks into a room and everyone else stops talking. There's another layer here that makes this moment even more urgent. Hikuleo isn't just a physical asset. He's a symbolic one. His debut sends a message to the locker room, to fans, and to management: the Anoa'i dynasty is far from finished. In fact, it's just getting started. The timing couldn't be more critical. SummerSlam is around the corner. Title pictures are wide open. Storylines are converging. And in a climate where everyone is looking to solidify their legacy, Roman's re-entry into the narrative isn't just disruptive, it's nuclear. This matters right now because WWE thrives on momentum. And Roman just created a moment that breaks through the noise. The moment wasn't delivered with fireworks. It wasn't hyped for weeks. It didn't need any of that. All it took was a walkout, a fight, and a fist bump backstage. That's all it took for everyone to feel it. The vibe changed. Backstage, younger talent is watching closely. Veterans are re-evaluating their positions. Seth Rollins knows he's got a target on his back again. And fans? They're glued to every screen because they know something big is coming. This return also matters because it taps into something deeper than just wrestling storylines, the idea of reinvention. Roman Reigns isn't pretending the old bloodline didn't collapse. He's not rewriting history. He's rebuilding from it. That's rare in wrestling. Most comebacks are about reclaiming lost glory. This one is about evolving into something more dangerous. Hikuleo's addition marks the beginning of that transformation. And for the fans watching? That's where the real weight lands. They've followed this saga for years. They've seen titles won, friendships broken, families torn apart. And now, they're watching it all start to come together again, not in a predictable way, but in a fresh, unsettling, explosive way. The energy in the air isn't nostalgia. It's suspense. Everyone is waiting for the next shoe to drop. Who joins next? Who betrays who? How does this change SummerSlam, Survivor Series, WrestleMania 42? What happens when Hikuleo steps into the ring with someone like Gunther or Bobby Lashley? What happens when Solo Sikoa finds out what Roman is building without him? This isn't a slow burn. It's a fuse. And it's already lit. Reigns picked the perfect moment to return. Right when the company was settling into its new order. Right when Rollins thought he had locked up control. Right when everyone thought the Bloodline name had been buried for good. He came back. With purpose. With backup. With a message. He's not here to reclaim the throne. He's here to blow up the palace and build a new one from the ashes. This moment matters because the stakes are finally real again. No more invincible Roman. No more six-man tags that end with predictable results. No more automatic wins. This version of the Bloodline is fighting from underneath. That makes them dangerous. That makes them desperate. And in wrestling, desperation leads to the most unforgettable moments. Every title is in play. Every faction is on notice. And every fan watching knows the next 6 months could reshape everything. The Bloodline is back. But it's not what it was. It's something else. Something colder. Something calculated. Something inevitable. And the rest of WWE? They've just been put on notice. For 3 years, the Bloodline didn't just dominate WWE, they defined it. Their presence was constant, their victories routine. Pay-per-views ended with Roman Reigns standing tall. Opponents came in strong and left broken. The group wasn't just a faction, it was a system. A machine. And Roman sat at its center, unchallenged. But even empires collapse. Not because of external threats, but because of the cracks within. To understand why Roman Reigns' return and Hikuleo's arrival are so seismic, you have to understand what came before. You have to look back at the final days of the Bloodline as it once existed, and how it fell apart not in one moment, but in a series of betrayals, breakdowns, and personal failures that no amount of gold could cover up. It started, as many downfalls do, with power. Roman had too much of it. Too many wins. Too many unchallenged declarations. Too many family members forced into submission under the banner of "Acknowledge me." The Bloodline worked as long as everyone stayed in their role. But the moment individual ambition came into play, everything started to break. Jimmy and Jey Uso were the first to show signs of rebellion. They'd been the loyal enforcers. Tag champs. Main event participants. They carried the mid-card while Roman held the top. But over time, cracks showed. Jimmy didn't like how Roman treated Jey. Jey wanted independence. There were tears, fights, walkouts. Family dinners turned into battlegrounds. And yet, every time, Roman brought them back into line, not with love, but with pressure. Then came Solo Sikoa. He was introduced as the Bloodline's insurance policy. Silent. Deadly. Efficient. He didn't speak much, but when he acted, it was brutal. Roman trusted him more than anyone. Because Solo didn't talk back. He didn't ask questions. He just executed. For a while, it worked. Solo was the final piece that made the Bloodline feel invincible again after the Uso drama. He took out threats. Interfered in critical matches. Carried out orders without flinching. But what Roman didn't see, what none of us saw at the time, was that Solo wasn't loyal. He was watching. Learning. Calculating. And when the moment came, he struck with the precision of someone who'd been planning it for months. WrestleMania 41. The night everything collapsed. Roman Reigns walked into that event expecting the same outcome he'd grown used to. Another main event. Another successful defense. Another validation of his status as tribal chief. But this time was different. The build-up had been shakier. The fans louder in their opposition. The locker room colder. And standing across from him was Seth Rollins, older, smarter, no longer a side character in Roman's saga, but a protagonist in his own right. The match was a war. Not a technical clinic, not a squash, but a battle of endurance and will. And just when it looked like Roman had it won, Just when the fans began to brace for the inevitable, Solo Sikoa slid into the ring. At first, it looked like backup. Then came the spike. Straight to Roman's throat. Shock. Silence. Betrayal. The tribal chief lay motionless. Rollins, stunned, didn't even know whether to make the cover. The crowd screamed. The referee counted. 1, 2, 3. And just like that, the reign ended. The belt was gone. But worse than that, the loyalty was gone. The family was gone. The image was shattered. In the hours that followed, chaos. Solo Sikoa left the arena without explanation. Paul Heyman was seen talking privately with Seth Rollins. Jey Uso posted a single word on social media, free. Jimmy said nothing at all. And Roman? He vanished. No interviews. No press conference. No social media statement. Just a disappearing act, as if acknowledging the loss would somehow give it permanence. In the weeks that followed, WWE's programming adjusted quickly. Seth Rollins celebrated. The new authority formed around him, Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed. Together, they promised a new era. Not one built on tribal legacy, but on strategic dominance. Cold control. For the first time in years, there was no trace of the Bloodline on WWE television. That silence said everything. What made the Bloodline so powerful was also what made it fragile: family. Wrestling factions often fall apart because of creative differences or storyline fatigue. But this wasn't that. This was real emotion turned into narrative gold, and then back into ruin. You could feel the weight of it in every segment that didn't mention Roman Reigns. His absence screamed louder than most promos. By the time the dust settled, the myth of invincibility was broken. And WWE wasted no time moving on. Titles changed hands. New stars were pushed. The commentary team stopped mentioning Roman's name. Heyman gave cryptic promos about new blood running the system. It was over. That's what we were led to believe. But Roman Reigns doesn't accept endings that aren't his. And here's what makes the fall of the Bloodline so important to this story: it taught Roman a lesson he never expected to learn. You can't hold power by forcing loyalty. You have to inspire it. Or better yet, build something so sharp, so undeniable, that loyalty becomes irrelevant. Which is exactly what Hikuleo represents. Not a brother. Not a cousin. Not a bloodline member who's been burned by power plays or past betrayals. A fresh soldier. A new weapon. Someone who didn't live through the fall, but understands why it happened. The fall of the Bloodline isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a blueprint for what comes next. Roman didn't return with the same plan. He returned with a new one. Smaller circle. Bigger impact. No more emotional leverage. No more loyalty-based manipulation. Now it's about domination. Clean. Calculated. Precise. When Hikuleo walked out on SmackDown, it wasn't just a debut. It was the first act of a carefully rebuilt empire. And when Reigns extended his fist backstage 2 nights later, it wasn't just a reunion. It was an oath. The Bloodline, as we knew it, is dead. But in its place stands something more dangerous. Because this time, Roman isn't building an empire with his heart. He's building one with his fists. Roman Reigns didn't lose everything at once. He lost it one crack at a time. For over 3 years, he stood as WWE's final boss. He wasn't just a champion, he was an institution. His name came before the title. His entrance stopped time. His every word carried weight. He was the head of the table, the tribal chief, the living, breathing identity of an entire era. And then, just like that, he was alone. Alone in the most exposed way possible. Not physically beaten down, not retired, not injured. Emotionally alone. abandoned by the very system he built. And that's where the Real story begins. Because what happened to Roman Reigns wasn't just a title loss or a turn in the booking. It was a stripping away of myth. A public dismantling of power. And Roman didn't just survive it, he let it reshape him. Rewind to the beginning of the Reigns era. August 2020. Roman returns at SummerSlam with new teeth, a new body, and a whole new mindset. Gone was the smiling, chest-beating babyface from the Shield days. In his place was a man who no longer asked for respect, he demanded it. He was done being the company guy. Now he was the company. That version of Roman Reigns was something WWE had never fully tapped into before, a villain who believed he was the hero. He didn't cheat to win because he had to. He did it because he could. He wasn't hungry for titles. He was addicted to power. He built the bloodline around this idea, familial loyalty as leverage. And for a while, it worked. He stacked legends. He beat Cena. He outsmarted Edge. He ended Bryan. He embarrassed Kevin Owens. He neutered Brock Lesnar. With Paul Heyman by his side and the Usos as his security detail, Roman Reigns didn't just run WWE. He held it hostage. But somewhere along the way, the cracks began to show. It's easy to rule when the system works in your favor. But Roman didn't build relationships, he built debt. The Usos didn't follow out of love. They followed out of pressure. Heyman didn't advise out of loyalty. He served out of fear. Solo Sikoa didn't join to honor a family legacy. He was positioned as the enforcer, the muscle, a role with an expiration date. Roman mistook submission for loyalty. And at WrestleMania 41, he paid for it. When Solo Sikoa turned on him mid-match, it wasn't just a betrayal, it was an awakening. In that one moment, Roman saw the truth, he had built a house on sand. His empire wasn't rooted in love or loyalty. It was built on fear. And fear eventually turns inward. That's why this chapter of Roman's story is so compelling. Because we're no longer watching a king rule, we're watching one rebuild from the dirt. And that's a version of Roman Reigns we've never seen before. In the weeks following WrestleMania, he disappeared. No vignettes. No cryptic tweets. No Instagram teases. Nothing. That silence was louder than any promo. Because it wasn't just Roman vanishing, it was the aura. The invincibility. The myth. And then, slowly, things started to shift. First, Seth Rollins stood tall with the undisputed title, flanked by Paul Heyman and the new authority. They didn't just replace Roman, they mocked what he stood for. Rollins wore the crown, but did so without the tribal declarations. Heyman spoke not about family, but about efficiency, structure, control. It was everything Roman once preached, refined and rebranded. To anyone else, that might have stung. But to Roman? It was motivation. The version of Reigns that's returned isn't the same man who towered over the WWE locker room for 3 years. This one is stripped down. No throne. No long-winded speeches. No Usos flanking him in tag matches. He's quieter now. More dangerous. Not because he's angry, but because he's focused. This is what Roman looks like when he's not trying to be acknowledged. This is what Roman looks like when he's hunting. And you can see it in the decisions he's made since returning. No grand speeches about reclaiming the title. No public callouts to Rollins. Instead, one major, calculated move, align with Hikuleo. It says everything. He didn't go back to his old lieutenants. He didn't call on Jay. He didn't chase after Solo for revenge. He went forward. He found new blood. A fresh, silent powerhouse with no agenda beyond dominance. A man with no scars from the previous war. This isn't nostalgia. It's evolution. Roman's new approach is surgical. The Reigns of 2 years ago would have kicked off SmackDown with a 20-minute promo and a warning. Today's Reigns walks in through the back door, says 2 words, bumps a fist, and leaves the world guessing. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. Because he knows now that words are fragile. Promises break. Family fractures. The only thing that lasts is control. And control means knowing when to strike. The old Roman ruled through spectacle. This one moves through silence. And if that doesn't terrify the rest of the WWE locker room, it should. Reigns isn't coming for redemption. He's coming for correction. This chapter of his story isn't about reclaiming what was lost. It's about restructuring what was broken. It's about rebuilding from the ashes without carrying the weight of what crumbled. And that's why Hikuleo is so important. He's not a replacement. He's a reinforcement. A symbol of the new strategy. The Roman of 2021 might have asked Hikuleo to prove himself. The Roman of now simply says, "Your family." Because when you've been to the top, fallen, and chosen to return, not because you have to, but because you want to, that's a different level of power. That's dangerous. Roman isn't a king anymore. He's something worse. He's a ghost with a grudge. And WWE has no idea what's coming next. When Roman Reigns vanished after WrestleMania 41, he didn't just leave a title behind, he left a power vacuum. A crater where control used to be. For over 1,000 days, he had been the gravitational center of WWE. Everything orbited around him, rivalries, main events, weekly storylines. With one match and one betrayal, that center collapsed. And WWE had to move fast. This wasn't just a champion losing. This was a regime ending. A cultural shift. A storyline universe forced to reset in real time. And in the chaos that followed, something unexpected happened. The show didn't fall apart. It restructured. New factions rose. Forgotten faces returned. Rising stars got fast-tracked. The show didn't just survive without Roman, it mutated. But even as new power centers formed, one truth remained: it all felt temporary. It didn't feel stable. Because even as WWE tried to push forward, Roman's shadow still loomed. His silence made more noise than any promo. And the entire locker room, whether they admitted it or not, kept one eye on the curtain, just in case the music hit and everything changed again. That's what makes this era so fascinating. It's not just the post-Roman era. It's the pre-something else era. Let's break down what happened while Roman was gone, and why everything that followed felt like a placeholder, waiting for the return of the real storm. First, there was Seth Rollins. After WrestleMania 41, he didn't just walk away with the undisputed title, he walked into the spotlight Roman had held for years. Rollins became the face of the company. But instead of embracing the fan-favorite role, he leaned into something colder. Rollins knew better than to copy Roman. He didn't form a new family. He formed a machine. He aligned himself with Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed, not brothers, not protégés, but assets. The group that emerged wasn't a faction in the traditional sense. It was a structure. Calculated. Ruthless. Efficient. Heyman called it the New Authority, and that name stuck. It was symbolic in every way. While the old authority of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon operated through corporate dominance, this one operated through tactical precision. They didn't need chaos. They needed checkmates. They didn't want the crowd's love. They wanted its silence. The New Authority made 2 things clear. 1. The era of tribal warfare and blood oaths was over. 2. No one would ever consolidate power the way Roman did again. At least, not if they had anything to say about it. And for a while, it worked. With Rollins as champion, Breaker as the athletic enforcer, and Reed as the muscle, the New Authority steamrolled through challengers. Heyman cut promos about systemic excellence. Rollins spoke like a champion who had matured past pageantry. Every segment, every appearance, was designed to present this new regime as unshakable. But nothing stable ever stays untouched in WWE. Because elsewhere on the roster, movement was happening. The Usos disappeared after WrestleMania. Jey Uso, burned out from years of emotional tug-of-war with his family, took time off. Jimmy vanished without explanation. Rumors of injury, creative shifts, or quiet negotiations floated around, but nothing concrete emerged. Solo Sikoa, on the other hand, didn't vanish. He escalated. His betrayal of Roman wasn't a one-off. It was a declaration. He didn't just walk away from the bloodline, he started moving like a man ready to build something of his own. And he wasn't alone. By late spring, Solo was spotted backstage with Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa, fellow Anoa'i family members and veterans of NJPW. While nothing official was announced, the signs were clear. Solo wasn't just existing in the post-Roman world. He was quietly building his own bloodline alternative. A leaner, meaner version. Stripped of theatrics. Built on rage. It wasn't just in-ring. It was personal. While Rollins and the New Authority focused on titles and image, Solo focused on something else entirely, revenge. Then there were the outliers. Gunther continued his run as Intercontinental Champion, amassing defenses, and solidifying himself as the most dangerous technical wrestler in WWE. Cody Rhodes floated between feuds, always a contender, always within reach of the main event but never quite locking it in. LA Knight surged in popularity but struggled to find storylines that stuck. Bobby Lashley remained a threat but lacked direction. The women's division saw similar shifts. New champions emerged. Factions formed and imploded. But through it all, something was missing. It wasn't just Roman's presence. It was his influence. See, Roman Reigns didn't just hold a belt. He held control. When he ruled, every title mattered more. Every storyline circled his orbit. Every decision felt strategic. Without him, things moved faster, but they moved chaotically. And WWE, despite its efforts to shift gears, never truly replaced him. You could feel it in the commentary. Even when Corey Graves talked about Rollins' dominance, there was hesitation. When Michael Cole hyped up the New Authority, there was an undertone. Almost like they were reading from a script they didn't fully believe in. Because at the end of the day, Rollins is a worker. He's a showman. He's earned his stripes. But he's not Roman. He doesn't command the room with silence. He doesn't make an arena hold its breath just by standing still. And so, even in his absence, Roman haunted the product. And the fans noticed. Social media never stopped asking, "Where's Roman?" Wrestling forums lit up every time the bloodline was referenced in the past tense. The crowd still chanted Tribal Chief during promos that had nothing to do with him. Reigns' merchandise continued to sell. And every WWE tweet that didn't mention him got at least a few replies saying, "Bring Roman back." That kind of presence can't be replaced. And WWE, whether it liked it or not, was still orbiting around him. Even when he was gone. So when he finally returned, without warning, without build-up, it was like the company exhaled. Even the locker room knew what it meant. Business just changed. And this time, he didn't come back to reclaim what he lost. He came back with Hikuleo. The post-Roman era was never about replacing him. It was about showing what happens when he's not there. And now that he's back, the contrast is staggering. The New Authority, with all its control, suddenly feels fragile. Solo Sikoa's shadow project? It now looks like a rebellion waiting to be crushed. Gunther's dominance? Now intersecting with a monster who hasn't been tested. The Usos? Possibly watching from the sidelines, wondering if they're next. Because here's the truth, Roman Reigns didn't just return to a changed WWE. He returned to a vulnerable one. One that tried to evolve without him. One that moved forward too fast. And now, he's back, not to catch up, but to punish. The wrestling world post-Roman was transitional. Unstable. Full of motion without direction. But with his return, and Hikuleo by his side, things are about to snap into focus again. Power doesn't stay scattered forever. Eventually, it finds a center. And that center just walked back into WWE. June 13, 2025. Los Angeles. The Kia Forum. The building was electric before the first bell even rang. The SmackDown card was stacked, titles on the line, grudge matches peaking, and a contract signing between Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. Fans expected fireworks. What they got was an earthquake. This was the night the balance of WWE shifted. Not just a storyline twist. Not a cliffhanger. A full-blown seismic event that redefined what SmackDown, the Bloodline, and Roman Reigns meant moving forward. It didn't start with a bang. It started with silence. Main event segment. Seth Rollins in the ring. Undisputed WWE Universal title glinting on his shoulder. Paul Heyman beside him. The crowd humming. No one quite sure what to expect. Rollins leaned into the mic with that smirk he's worn since WrestleMania and said the words that kicked the door open: Roman Reigns is done. The Bloodline is dead. And I'm the one who put the nail in the coffin. The crowd reacted. Some booed. Some cheered. But everyone paid attention. Heyman, never missing an opportunity to write a moment, stepped forward. "Let me say what no one else will," he began, voice soaked in arrogance. "The tribal chief is no more. What's left of him isn't fit to sit at the table, much less lead it." The fans didn't know it yet, but they were witnessing the match light the fuse. Rollins continued, pacing slowly, feeding off the moment. He pointed at Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed standing behind him. "These two aren't followers," he said. "They're future. They're what domination looks like now. This is the new dynasty." That was the final straw. The lights dropped. And for the first time in over 2 years, silence became a character. No pyro. No music at first. Just confusion. Gasps. Camera flashes. Commentary went dead for a moment, Michael Cole and Corey Graves holding their breath. Then it started. A low bass hum. Then the tribal drums. Deep. Hollow. Reverberating. The Titantron lit up in static, flickering images flashing across the screen, Anoa'i family tree silhouettes, crumbling thrones, jungle fire. It wasn't Roman's theme. Not exactly. It was something else. Familiar yet corrupted. Then the guitar dropped. Heavy. Violent. A dirge-turned war cry. The screen went black for a beat. Then a single word appeared, blood. The crowd exploded. And from behind the curtain, a massive figure stepped through the fog. Black boots. Tactical vest. Hooded cloak. 6'8". Pure muscle. Unfazed. Hikuleo. The commentary team was silent for a beat too long. And then, "Who the hell is that?" Michael Cole whispered, as if afraid to say it. Corey Graves leaned forward. That's Hikuleo. That's Tonga's brother. That's Anoa'i blood." The crowd, a mix of confusion and buzz, reacted in waves. People stood. Phones shot into the air. Chants began, disjointed at first. "Who's that guy? He's huge." And then, from the smart marks, "That's Hikuleo." He walked slowly, deliberately. Not acknowledging the crowd. Not raising his arms. Just marching down the ramp like he was walking into a war he'd already won. The ring froze. Rollins stepped back. Breaker flexed, trying to get a read. Reed lowered his stance, already sweating. Heyman looked like he'd seen a ghost. Hikuleo stopped at the foot of the ramp. For a second, he didn't move. Then the lights dropped again. This time, no static. Just the beat. That familiar heartbeat pulse that always preceded one name. Roman Reigns. The tribal tattoo design slashed across the screen in red. The crowd erupted. No pop. No build-up. Just raw, primal reaction. The people who had booed him for years now screamed at full volume. The tribal chief had returned. And when the smoke cleared, he stood beside Hikuleo on the ramp. No mic in hand. No smirk on his face. Just presence. Roman looked harder now. A little leaner. A little older. More shadow under the eyes. But still every inch the king. He glanced at Hikuleo. Then, together, they walked forward. Every step was a statement. They climbed the steps. Entered the ring. Roman didn't speak. He didn't need to. Hikuleo moved first. Braun Breaker lunged, instinct, stupidity, or both. Big boot. Flat to the mat. Bronson Reed tried next. Tongan twist. Full rotation. Canvas bounce. Lights out. Heyman ducked and rolled under the bottom rope. Rollins slid backward like he'd touched fire. And still, Roman hadn't moved. Finally, he stepped forward. One step. He raised a single fist. Hikuleo mirrored him. The crowd erupted into a chant none of them had planned. Bloodline. 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 No music played. No words were spoken. The moment didn't end with a catchphrase. It ended with a camera shot, Roman and Hikuleo, side by side, staring down Rollins as he backed up the ramp, clutching his title like a shield. Backstage after the show, WWE.com footage caught what wasn't shown live. Roman, pacing quietly in a dark hallway. No production crew. No pyro. Hikuleo approached. No words at first. Roman turned to him. Your family, he said. I know the code, Hikuleo answered. Roman extended a fist. Hikuleo bumped it. And with that, the bloodline was reborn. But this time, it wasn't about legacy. It was about revenge. This was a message, not to the fans, not to the locker room, but to the system itself. Roman had been erased from the board. Now he was the board. Hikuleo wasn't there to be a tag partner. He wasn't a stand-in for the Usos or a placeholder for Solo Sikoa. He was the reset button. The power shift. The moment where the bloodline stopped being a broken dynasty and became a new threat. This wasn't about family loyalty. It was about dominance. And it all started on a night that no one expected. SmackDown, June 13, 2025. The night that changed everything. For the fans who didn't follow New Japan Pro Wrestling, Hikuleo's debut on SmackDown felt like a lightning bolt out of nowhere. A 6'8", 300-pound juggernaut marching down the ramp like he'd been there for years, silent, cold, dominant. But for those who knew, this wasn't a surprise. This was inevitable. Because Hikuleo wasn't just some developmental giant. He wasn't a pet project from the Performance Center. He was a time bomb. A living legacy built in Japan, shaped in violence, and now unleashed on WWE's biggest stage with a mission far bigger than gold. To understand who Hikuleo is, and why he matters, you have to go back. Way back. Before the bloodline. Before Bullet Club. Before the tribal chants and the salutes. Back to the roots of wrestling's most powerful family. Hikuleo is Anoa'i blood. Not in the immediate Roman J. Jimmy line, but in the extended branch. The same family tree that produced Yokozuna, Umaga, Rikishi, The Rock, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, and of course, Roman Reigns himself. This family isn't a gimmick. It's a dynasty. Generational dominance coded into DNA. But unlike many of his relatives, Hikuleo didn't come up in WWE. He forged his identity overseas, in the furnace that is New Japan Pro Wrestling. Debuting in 2016 under the Bullet Club banner, Hikuleo was the younger brother of Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa, two veterans of the NJPW scene. But even as a rookie, it was obvious that Hikuleo was different. Bigger. Meaner. Hungrier. Early on, he was raw. Powerful, yes, but not polished. Still figuring out his ring instincts. NJPW didn't protect him. They let him get beat, bloodied, stretched. That's how you grow in Japan. You learn by surviving. And Hikuleo learned fast. By 2019, the potential turned into presence. He teamed frequently with his brothers in the Guerrillas of Destiny, picking up tag victories across Japan and the US. He became a key part of NJPW's Western expansion, one of the few wrestlers who could bridge the strong style of Japan with the theatrical, brawling heavy style of American wrestling. Then came 2021. The shift. Hikuleo started appearing in New Japan Strong, NJPW's US-based show, where he was positioned not just as a tag team support, but as a solo force. He stood across the ring from names like Fred Rosser, Tom Lawler, and Jay White. And he didn't just hold his own, he started winning. Convincingly. His size was an advantage, but it was his agility that stunned people. Guys that big usually move slow. They rely on power, plodding footwork, maybe a stiff lariat or a corner splash. But Hikuleo moved differently. Quick reflexes. Fast rotations. A snap superkick that landed flush. A running big boot that could knock out a heavyweight. And then there's his finisher, the Tongan twist, a thunderous chokeslam that he executes with perfect lift and velocity. It's not a slow-motion spectacle. It's a snap execution. No wind-up. No oversell. Just one violent drop and it's over. In 2023, he captured the Strong Openweight Championship, solidifying himself as a solo contender. He wasn't writing his brothers' names anymore. He had his own. The whispers started. He's coming to WWE. And those whispers weren't wrong. WWE had been watching for years. Hikuleo had size, legacy, international appeal. He had the kind of presence Vince McMahon used to dream about, and the in-ring style Triple H respects. But the question wasn't if WWE would sign him. It was how. Would they send him to NXT? Let him build through developmental? Would they tease his debut for months, build video packages, seed storylines? None of that happened. Because Roman Reigns had a different plan. Instead of Hikuleo arriving like a recruit, he arrived like a message. No press release. No contract signing segment. No NXT run. Just boom, on SmackDown, face-to-face with Seth Rollins, knocking Braun Breaker out cold, standing side-by-side with Roman like they'd been planning this for months. That's not a debut. That's a declaration. And make no mistake, this isn't just about muscle. Hikuleo brings strategic value. His NJPW experience taught him how to work long matches, how to adapt to styles, how to thrive without overbooking. He knows when to pace, when to explode, when to let the crowd sit in silence and stew. He's also not a guy who talks much. And that silence matters. In a world where everyone cuts promos, Hikuleo's lack of words becomes power. He lets his body do the talking. And that's exactly what Roman Reigns needs. After the collapse of the original Bloodline, Roman doesn't need drama. He doesn't need brothers arguing, managers scheming, loyalty being questioned. He needs precision. He needs presence. He needs someone who doesn't flinch when things fall apart. That's Hikuleo. And symbolically, it means everything. Because if you look closely, this isn't just a one-off alliance. This is succession planning. Roman's not just coming back to fight. He's preparing for the next version of dominance. And Hikuleo is the first piece. Not Solo Sikoa. Not Jimmy or Jay. Hikuleo. A new model. A different type of soldier. Less emotional. More lethal. This also sets up 1,000 future directions. Hikuleo vs. Gunther. A collision of titans. Hard-hitting, clean, no interference. Hikuleo vs. Solo Sikoa. A civil war inside the Anoa'i family. One who betrayed Roman versus one who saved him. Hikuleo vs. Breaker. A raw power contest. But more importantly, it sets the tone for the new bloodline. This isn't a group built on speeches and family dinners. This is a strike force. Tactical, violent, stripped of emotion. And it all centers around Hikuleo. Because the truth is, you don't put someone in Roman Reigns' frame without trust. Roman doesn't just bring someone to the front line without a purpose. Hikuleo isn't a follower. He's an heir in waiting. A signal that this version of the bloodline won't end with Roman. It might begin with him. This changes everything.